My name is Jennifer Montone, and I'm the principal horn of the Philadelphia Orchestra. Thanks so much for joining me for this video on back injuries. I have a long history of back issues, and I found that a lot of horn players actually do. A lot of musicians do. There's a large community of supportive people out there who can help you if you have a back injury or a back, back pain that seems to be either being made worse by your horn playing or seems to be impacting your ability to breathe and play, as it did for me. So I wanted to talk about sort of some of the things that are related to the instrument or not related to the instrument that you can do if you find yourself in that situation. So apparently as we get older, we all, develop some back pain at various times depending on how we move throughout life. I had some hereditary issues that were also playing into that. I also had a car accident, which maybe led to some back pain. And then I had 2 kids that then when I was pushing a double stroller around, that's when everything kind of came to a perfect storm for me. I ended up having pretty excruciating back pain for multiple years, and kind of culminating in something called cauda equina, which is where you get numb in sort of your core region, and then they have to have emergency surgery. So it was sort of scary. I ended up with a laminectomy, discectomy, where they take out the discs, and they were able to fix it and everything's fine, but I did have to take quite a bit of time off the horn afterwards. And I worked with some neurologists and some body workers, and I just wanted to share some of that information that I learned with you. First off, in order to avoid back injuries of different types, apparently there's the BLTs: bending, lifting, and twisting. So for me, say bending down to grab a coffee, twisting to grab my mute. If you bend and twist, like actually just getting a mute off the ground is a big problem. So I started sitting farther up in my chair and putting my mutes behind me. There's also those cute little mute hangers that you can buy. Standing up to playing is a little harder if you have a back injury. You feel like those muscles are weaker or they're in pain. So I use an ergo brass, which is a belt with a stick. That's a nice tool as well. That can be super helpful. Also then things like the way that you support to play the instrument. Support is such a fraught topic in our industry. Everybody has different thoughts about it. I know one way that ended up putting added pressure on my back, and indeed also my pelvic floor, was something I either learned or misconstrued when I was younger, about if you take a deep breath and your belly and your back go out, as they probably are naturally going to do, that one should hold it out, which I don't think helps. I think that puts pressure in those regions, that type of support. I think there's a natural deflation over time, even if you engage the support on the inhale, that one should naturally let their body do. Similarly, if you were taught to press down into your sit spoons when you play higher, I found that in principal horn chair, playing a lot of loud and high, if I was pushing down and pushing out, again, that made a lot of pressure on my pelvic floor, which then later physical therapists and body workers said, wow, that doesn't surprise me that that would cause weakness down in those regions, because you, apparently when your diaphragm, when you inhale, your diaphragm and your pelvic floor go down, and then when you exhale, they naturally come back up. So to push down as you exhale would also then be pushing your diaphragm and your pelvic floor in different directions from each other, which also creates an unnatural way of doing things. So basically working with your body and working with what's naturally supposed to be sort of, or naturally occurring, might help you, especially if you're having any kind of back injuries. Incidentally, also if you have quivers in your sound, as you have any kind of back pain, or if you, as you get older, if you have quivers in your sound, you could look at the way you're breathing and supporting. And what I did was just take off the edges of what I thought I should be doing, and I started just kind of like playing a little more naturally. I did some research into the way that Arnold Jacob teaches breathing, the tuba player, of course, from Chicago. He has breathing bags, he has breath builders. Those both help with a lot of the natural intake and exhale, kind of cyclical motion of breathing, kind of getting the air in and then naturally, effortlessly getting it out. Some of the concepts of like the yawn breath, of like putting the tongue on the bottom of your mouth when you're breathing, that can naturally, help your lungs get filled with air without any extraneous pressure. All of those things can be helpful and help you from doing anything that's aggravating your back, basically. In terms of helpful like resources, if you go to a doctor and, for back pain and they put you on medicine and it, clears up, that's usually something relating to like a slipped disc or something, and that's great. Physical therapy, if it doesn't clear up, physical therapy can be very, very helpful. It can help with strengthening the muscles around, the spine. We have all those layers of muscles. One thing with horn playing is that when I ended up strengthening all those muscles, I started feeling more confident about my ability to play loud, and ascending passages grew easier. So everything that is like Pilates or yoga related can be helpful for all of those internal core muscles that wrap around the spine and the layer after layer. It might also be helpful if you did end up having a back surgery, as I did. I ended up with a big hole, space in my spine, where all of those discs and bones had been, and I felt weakened after that. And then so I did a whole lot of physical therapy, yoga, Pilates, and then work with a personal trainer who helps with sort of what he would call like the keg of the core area, which is kind of your thighs, glutes, stomach, and abdominal wall and pelvic floor sort of region. So there's a lot of medical and sports related help out there for this area, and it's just a matter of finding specialists in your area. If you ever have a problem with something like that or you want to talk it through, I'm happy to have a phone session or something like that to talk about specific issues and specific things that can help. I also got some really nice help with especially the parts of horn playing that have to do with standing and feeling free and confident again in playing standing, from Dinka Vlatkovic, Radovan's wife. She had me walking around while I was playing so that I could get sort of the movement in my hips again and feel sort of trusting that everything, would stay steady down there. Alexander technique, if you can work with an Alexander technique person, they can help you a lot with sort of the longer lever, making sure that you're sort of stacked on top of your, everything is stacked naturally. I tended to do a lot of like duck kind of, going forward or rounding my back or arching my back too much, so they can help you find sort of the better posture. And another concept for sitting and playing that can be really helpful if you're having back issues is making sure that you're very naturally straight on your sits bones, and that your feet are nicely planted on the floor, and that you feel very stable posturally, so that when you blow and when you breathe, you can feel like everything is not being impeded by your posture in terms of getting the air in and out in a natural way. I found that when I was going through my back injury, I did a lot of extra stretching and breathing exercises before approaching the horn, just so that I felt like my body was working with me and I was working with it. There's a strong natural temptation to feel frustrated at your body letting you down, I guess would be the way I would describe it in my head. Like, we have a job to do, and come on, man, why aren't you doing what I need you to do? And I actually ended up working with a Rubenfeld synergist, sort of a kind of a mental to body work type of person, who helped me kind of get over the mental aspects, not get over, I don't know that I'll ever be over the mental aspects of playing the French horn, clearly, but sort of helped me integrate, I guess, how I feel about my body and how I trust it and how I honor it and thank it for what it's doing to help me with my playing and with what I want to express. So she had me sort of asking it questions Like when you talk about this or when you think about this piece, where do you feel it? And, I would feel like frustration or fear or shame or pride or whatever, and I would feel it in different parts of my body. She would have me talk to that part of that body part and talk about what it was experiencing and see if there was any answer that came, see if there was any way that one could, sort of just listen and be with those feelings. So, because there's definitely a mental component to all physical injuries. And there's actually a beautiful website about that topic called Musicians Well, like a well of water or a musician who is well. And it's Angela Cordell Bilger's website, and she collated a whole bunch of interviews. I have an interview on there, as do many of our colleagues and friends who have gone through injuries. So if you're a young musician, it's very heartening to hear about all of these colleagues and people who have gone through this and gotten help from the community, from the supportiveness of the music community, and who are on the other side of it and being able to be okay. Obviously, for all things medical, we have to go to doctors and body workers for it. That's not something that a horn teacher or a mentor can help with necessarily from a medical standpoint, but as it connects to our playing, there are plenty of things like this that one can do. I would suggest also that if you're going to take time off the instrument to deal with some back issues. When I went to see a neurologist for it at the Cleveland Clinic, he basically told me that when coming back from this type of injury, you have a lot of intrathoracic pressure that builds up when we play the horn, and that pushes against and creates pressure inside your body from the blowing process. So doing things on mouthpiece, practicing on mouthpiece, blowing things, singing things, all of those types of practicing can be really helpful for keeping the lips in shape and keeping your musical projects going as you're recovering from this. So in orchestra land, we would call it work hardening as you get, more and more into playing and after an injury of any kind. So if you take off some time from the horn, I would say keep sort of your musical life alive when you can't play, by listening to music you love and maybe looking at a score and maybe looking at what is coming up for you in terms of gigs or rehearsals or concerts or anything that you want to work on or recitals or whatever. Sort of study things when you can't play it. Maybe write in your sheet music what you want to do with it, sing along with recordings, make musical choices, and then as your body is seeming okay with it, you can start introducing it on the mouthpiece. You can use a burp, you can use just like a little metal tube, anything like that will be a good conduit. Up sound, buzz blocks, any of those tools are really helpful for that type of situation. And then when your body is feeling okay, you can start, easily, getting back into playing. I do think it's sort of like a construction project. It always takes about twice as long as you would expect, and it feels about 10 times as frustrating and destabilizing as you would expect to come back from any injury. So give yourself a lot of grace and humor and compassion and self-love and encouragement, and really have your cheerleader voice in there when you are recovering from an injury of any kind. And I would say maybe the back injury was the most hard for my mental state, just because it had to do with the breathing and the sound and my comfort level and my trust in that. So for whatever it's worth, I had to give myself more of the self-compassion and sort of encouragement, that especially when things don't feel great, often they sound just fine. And that little things that we might notice are not often all that noticeable out in the hall. And that when I think about musical things, that tends to be the things everyone notices about my playing, as opposed to if I'm sitting there waiting to see if my sound sounds weird because of my back issues, for example. So anyway, kind of getting into the healthier mindset, kind of back into this is what I want for this music, this is what I want for this piece and this phrase, and I'm going to phrase here, and I'm going to take a big breath, and I'm going to crest to the top. So all of your enthusiastic, more musical goals being really right in the forefront. Anyway, good luck with all of your recovery, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions on this topic. Happy to chat anytime.